Good morning and welcome to the Extension Connection. We have the Morton County staff with you today, and we are taping in studio prior to Wednesday, and so we will not be taking any calls. With me today I have Carla Mickle, 4-H Youth Agent, Vanessa Hoynes, Family Consumer Science, and Ashley Stegman, and myself, Jackie Buckley, Morton County Extension Agent. And so, Carla, do you want to start this morning?
Sure. This coming weekend, of course, is going to be a really fun weekend. It's the Fall Sportsman's Expo, sponsored by Pucklet Chevrolet. And 4-H has a big part in the expo this weekend. We are having an archery tournament, and we're also having our air rifle trailer. And the first annual Fall Youth Shootout starts Friday, October 24th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and runs until 7. And then we start up again on October 25th at 9 o'clock in the morning and run until 5. And this is an archery tournament for youth from across the state. We've got kids registered from Wahpeton area, Devil's Lake, New England, and Jamestown, and really all over, but those are some of the highlighted places. And it'll be held at the Bismarck Event Center, now it's called, instead of the Civic Center. And events include freestyle, barebow, and recurve. There's 3 different divisions: beginners 8 to 10, juniors 11 to 13, and seniors 14 to 19. We will have some Genesis bows and arrows available for use, so if you need some equipment, that will be there. We do ask, though, that if you are a beginner, there aren't lessons available for this tournament. You need to have some kind of experience in order to participate. And we'll have individual prizes for first, second, and third. And registration was due last week, but we have some openings still left. And so you have until 5 o'clock on Thursday to register. You can do that by contacting our office at 667-3340. Or you can also walk in, bring your bow, and come in, and you can get registered right at the event. We do require a parent or a guardian to be there to sign safety and media releases prior to you participating in the event. And the cost for this is $5 for youth. And just a note, too, that all youth get in free to the Fall Sportsman's Expo, the Pucklet Chevrolet Sportsman's Expo. Adults do have to pay an admission fee, but they are really gearing the event this year toward youth and youth activities. And so youth who do come in will be admitted free to the Fall Sportsman's Expo. So very exciting weekend. We'll also have the air rifle trailer there. Last year, that was a big hit, especially with vendors that were around us. And so we're looking forward to a very busy weekend, and the weather sounds nice. So if you have an opportunity, please stop by and visit us, and we'll have a lot of 4-H stuff there. If you have questions about joining 4-H, you can visit with us right there on site. And that is all I have this week.
So they can just, what happens if somebody just wants to come and shoot there? Do they have to pre-register?
No.
Or can they just... Can they come there?
Yep,
Carla?
You can walk in and just register right at the event. We will have registration forms and waivers and safety releases and media forms there for you to fill out. And so if you want to bring your bow, we have different time slots. They're set up every half hour starting on Friday at 2:30 in the afternoon. Not every half hour, every hour. So on the half hour is what it is. And so we'll be starting different events at those times, and you can come in. We'll have different distances. Senior freestyle will shoot at 18 yards, and beginners and juniors will shoot at 15 yards. So you can just show up with your bow or come and use one of our Genesis bows, and you'll be all set. And it should be, like I said, a pretty fun weekend. And Town Square Media is a big sponsor of the weekend, and so is Pucklet Chevrolet. So be a lot of people.
Okay. So. All right. Yeah, and hunting season is in full swing.
Yes.
So,
yeah. Deer season and pheasant and upland bird. So a lot of different.
Yep. So how about you, Vanessa?
Well, I have some upcoming programs that I wanted to mention to folks that are going to happen in November. Dining with Diabetes is still going to be available. That meets for 4 sessions. It's going to be held in the evening from 5:30 to 7:30 on November 3rd, November 6th, 17th, and 20th. And it is a 4-part class, and so you would be invited to come to all of those sessions. There is still room to register. The cost is $25 for the individual that's been diagnosed with diabetes. And then if there is a supporter, caregiver, other family member that would also like to attend with them, that's just an additional $10. And so looking forward to having folks sign up for that. It's a great opportunity to learn some new techniques for planning meals, for keeping your blood sugars, in line, how your doctor wants them to be, perhaps. It's an opportunity to visit with registered dietitians, and we also have diabetes educators involved with the programming also. And we do start the evening with a meal that will help you get started on a well-balanced meal that gives you some tips and ideas for new things that you might want to prepare at home. And so if you're interested in registering for this class, you can sure call our office at 667-3340. I really want you to call before Friday, though, so that we can, before the, I think Friday is the 24th, to make sure that we can get everything ready and prepared for you for Monday, the November 3rd, so we can get started with that. Another program that's coming up in November is putting on your thinking cap, brain health, aging, and you. November is actually Brain Health Month, Memory Loss Month, and so we are recognizing that by offering a different session in regards to brain health each Monday of November. And if you're interested in that, the first session is going to be called Understanding Memory Loss, and this is going to be presented by Nikki Heinert from the Alzheimer's Association. And no, we're not just going to be talking about Alzheimer's, we're going to be talking about memory loss in general. What are some of the things to be aware of? What are some things that we don't have to be concerned about? And what are the things that maybe would be something that would cause us to ask more questions, visit with our physician, check on, even visit with our pharmacist, because sometimes memory loss can be related to drug interactions that we might be having. And so there can be many reasons why somebody would be having memory loss. So we're going to help folks kind of get to the bottom of that before it becomes something that they're continued concern about. And then the second Monday in November, November 10th, will be a presentation on caregiving. And of course, somebody who has memory loss or Alzheimer's becomes a caregiving challenge. And Jane Strumman from the NDSU Extension Service, she's our gerontology specialist, is going to be offering that program. The programs will be from 1 to 2 in the afternoon, and if you are interested in registering, you can call 701-751-3050. And if you didn't get that number, you can always call our extension office too at 667-3340. The following Mondays, we also will be visiting with a couple doctors on November 17th, and then on November 24th, we'll finish up the series with talking about nourishing your brain. And actually, I'm going to be the presenter for that session, and we will be offering a brain healthy lunch as a part of that. And all these sessions are free. You just need to get registered and get your name on the list. And obviously, the one that includes the luncheon does have a minimum or a maximum that we can accept for that day. So make sure you get registered early. And again, that number is to register 751-3050. And you can go ahead and register for all 4 sessions with just one call.
Okay. And so there's no fee for the lunch one either?
Nope. The lunch is free, and the sessions, all 4 of the sessions are free, including the last one with the lunch.
Okay, well, that sounds
So
good.
yeah, we have lots of good sponsors. The Alzheimer's Association, Northland PACE, the Edgewood here in Mandan, and St. A's, and then NDSU Extension Service are all helping to sponsor this series, and then also the lunch.
Okay. Do you have a little bit, I guess I'll just talk a little bit here on a little short thing before we go for our break. And I would like to remind producers that if they're having any of their feed tested, you can check for relative feed value. And relative feed value combines dry matter intake and digestible dry matter. And it compares the quality of legume and legume grass, hays, and silages. Need to remind you that relative feed value is an index. It's not a percentage. The higher relative feed value indicates that it's a higher forage quality feed. relative feed value was developed using legume forages and intake responses for lactating dairy cows. So it works best when it's applied to that situation. And most dairy farmers, they're the ones that use relative feed value or RFV the most often. We use acid detergent fiber, ADF, which is the cell wall portions of the forage make up cellulose and lignin. As ADF increases, the digestibility decreases. And so your ADF feeds, if they increase in, if the ADF increases, that means that there's probably a higher fiber, more lignin, like prairie hay would be higher in ADF, excuse me. The other constant that is in there is neutral detergent fiber, and that consists of the total cell wall. They reflect the amount of forage that the animal consume. As NDF percentages increase, dry matter intake generally will decrease, and so the more NDF, the less the animals will eat. And a rule of thumb for determining the value of hay using relative feed value is Minnesota has a hay market, which we don't have in North Dakota. So there's a range that you can use, like 0.8 to $1 per point of relative feed value times the relative feed value will give you the value per ton. And so that's something very simple. So if you know your relative feed value, you can use 0.8 to $1 per point to give you the value of the hay. And so, of course, the lower relative feed value feeds will be cheaper, and of course, your alfalfa hay will be more expensive. And so that's kind of how that's determined. We are about ready to go to a break, and we'll be back in just a few minutes after the commercial break. Welcome back to the Extension Connection, and we have the Morton County staff with us today, and we are taping prior to our program today, and so no questions on the phone, I guess. So today also I want to visit with you a little bit about box elder bugs, and they're out and about, and a lot of people get pretty squeamish when I start talking about them, and not a lot of people really like them very much. And so they're a very simple bug, and they feed on the seeds of a box elder tree. And so if you have a female box elder tree, there is a difference. There's a male and a female box elder tree, and if you have some of those, you probably have box elder bugs in your yard.
You know how you can tell the difference between a male and a female tree? It's the one that has the box elder bugs.
Yeah. Very funny. Box elder bugs, of course, I'm sure that everybody knows what they look like. They're flat, bright-colored insects with 3 narrow red stripes on the prothorax. The wings are thick and leathery at the base and membranous at the tips. The nymphs, or the immature, they're completely all red. And so if you see, they're without wings, they're wingless, and they're all red. And so they resemble the shape of the adult, but they're smaller, wingless, and then they're a bright red or an orange. They're usually about a ½ inch long and about 1/3 of an inch wide. The small red eggs are laid by females in crevices of tree bark on objects near host plants in the spring. The nymphs hatch from eggs in approximately 14 days and feed on new leaves and tender twigs of their host. Nymphs pass through 5 instars, or 5 growth stages, before becoming winged adults. Adults appear in midsummer, or like they appear in midsummer, but we don't really notice them until it starts to get cool at night, and then when it's nice outside, like the last few days. And we always see them basically on the south side of our homes. Of course, and like I said, they are primarily found on seed-bearing box elder trees, although they may occasionally feed on maple, ash, plum, cherry, and apple. With the arrival of cold weather, the adults seek shelter to pass the winter. These bugs move to hibernation sites and congregate in large numbers on the bark of host trees and cracks and crevices in walls, in door and window casings, around foundations, and other protected places. Eventually, many bugs get into the home, offices, and other buildings. On mild days during early winter and spring, overwintering bugs sometimes appear again to warm in the sun on light-colored surfaces of buildings which face south and west. They do not damage buildings, food, or fiber products, but occasionally bite if handled carelessly. And I didn't realize that they bite, but they usually don't. However, the bite is not painful, and the insect does not transmit a disease. Indoors, they may stain fabrics and walls when crushed. They also can produce an unpleasant odor when they're crushed as well. In the house, we kind of just recommend you use a vacuum cleaner, fly swatter, and throw them away. If you have a lot of them and you vacuum them up, make sure that you empty your bag or your dirt, because when they start decaying, it could make an odor as well. Outside, you can spray them outside. If you like to use something organic, you can purchase an insecticidal soap that will work if you like that. Or you can use like Sevin or anything with a pyrethrin in it, permethrin, cyfluthrin. These products can be applied directly to the insects where they congregate on walls, tree trunks, fences, sidewalks, porches, etc. You need to make sure that you read and follow the label directions anytime you're making a pesticide application. So if you have any questions. And so if you're interested in more information on box elder bugs, I'm sure you can Google them, or else we have more information on the NDSU website as well. Vanessa, do you have something that you'd like to visit with the audience about?
Sure. Well, of course, I'm thinking about, we have Thanksgiving coming up, and before that, we also have Halloween. And with Halloween comes that our big, friendly orange vegetable that we forget about other times of the year is that great pumpkin. And so, so why eat pumpkin? Isn't it just something that we cut up and use as a jack-o'-lantern, and then when it rots, we throw it away? No, pumpkin is actually considered a superfood because it's packed with nutrients, including fiber and beta-carotene, which is what our body uses to produce vitamin A. And we need enough vitamin A to maintain healthy skin, healthy eyes, and also our mucous membranes. And so really many vegetables that are dark green, dark orange, or golden in color provide us with beta carotene, and pumpkin is one of those that is a really good source of vitamin A. Because pumpkin is about 90% water by weight, it's very low in calories. So usually about a half a cup of canned pumpkin only has about 40 calories. And so it's it's good for somebody who's trying to watch their weight and those kinds of things too, because it's low in calories, but yet it's really packed with nutrition. It's also a good source of potassium, and potassium is an essential mineral for maintaining our health. It helps to keep our muscles working and firing, includes even our heart muscle, keeps that pumping on the right beat and not getting out of rhythm. Folks can actually have a heart attack because of not having enough potassium. And so it's very important. A lot of athletes also need to watch their amount of potassium because they can lose potassium during workouts and when they're perspiring a lot, potassium can be lost. And so potassium can cause people to have muscle cramps and those kinds of things. So it's important to have those rich foods in potassium. We can get potassium from other vegetables and fruits, and also the dairy. Dairy foods can give us some potassium in addition to that. It also helps with our blood pressure management, and it does play a role in allowing our nerves to transmit signals. So potassium has lots of different roles that are very important. Besides pumpkin, many other foods such as potatoes, tomatoes, orange juice, bananas, dry edible beans, whole grains are also good sources of potassium.
And ketchup.
Ketchup?
I had to say it, Vanessa, because I know how you feel about ketchup. But
why don't you just eat the tomato?
I had to
because
say it, I'm
ketchup
sorry.
also has lots and lots of sodium.
Yes, it does.
And
I
sugar.
know.
So, okay, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I have
I
a
know.
question.
Yeah.
Okay, so usually I just put my pumpkin in my pie. How else would you serve it?
Well, and I'm getting to that.
Sorry.
No. That's a very good question. And I think, starting out, of course, we're probably buying those pumpkins for jack-o'-lanterns right now. We're thinking about that. But if you are planning to use a pumpkin in something that you want to prepare, like a pumpkin pie or something else, chances are that those large pumpkins are not the one that you want to use for cooking with. Those are great for jack-o'-lanterns, and they're very stringy inside and work good for that. Usually you want to look for a smaller sugar pumpkin. Those are the ones that are more ideal for those types of recipes. And I do have lots of recipes, and they're available online. We have recipes for a pumpkin bean soup, a pumpkin bread pudding.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Pumpkin muffins. And one of the favorites for this time of the year, because folks like pumpkin pie so much, if you like pumpkin pie but are trying to watch your calories, there is a magic crust pumpkin pie that is kind of almost a crustless pumpkin pie that allows you to have the goodness of the pumpkin without all those added calories that come with that crust, because the crust is really the part that gives it a bad rap. Mm-hmm. So there are other ways that you can get those pumpkins. So if you're interested in some of those recipes, you can sure call our office at 667-3340. Or if you go onto our Extension website and just do a search for pumpkin recipes, you'll come up with lots of different things that you can look at and possibly add to your list of things that you want to prepare. So if you buy this little pumpkin and you bring it home, what do I do with it next? You can cut it in half, clean out all the seeds and those types of things, and then you can choose to bake it, or you can go ahead and peel it, cut it into chunks, and then microwave it or boil it to get it to be a little bit softer so you can work with it. We're going to take a quick break, and then I'll come back and I'll tell you a little bit more about how to prepare those little pumpkins. And we're back to the Extension Connection. We're back to talking about pumpkins. So if you have found a pumpkin in your yard, or if you have gone to the farmer's market or the grocery store and you found some pumpkins that you want to make some items with, after you have cut it in half and cleaned out all the seeds, then you can either bake it at that point, or you can cut it into chunks after you have peeled it and either boil it or microwave it. And then it's time to go ahead and mash it or puree it if you're planning. And you can do that either in the blender or a food processor. And then you're ready to use that pumpkin in your favorite recipes. If you would like to at this point, you can also, if you have lots of pumpkin that you're preparing, you can take amounts that you normally would use in a recipe, whether it's 2 cups or 3 cups, and put that into a container and freeze in those amounts so that you can take those out and then use them in your favorite recipes. If you have enough pumpkin that you want to preserve by canning, we don't recommend canning pumpkin in a puree form. You really need to can that in that cube form. So you'd need to cut it up and then follow those recommendations. And I do have those recommendations also on our website and in a pamphlet for canning low acid foods. But the main thing is just to recognize that you cannot can pureed pumpkin or squash, because it just is way too, the consistency is way too thick to ensure that you get the product heated all the way through, so to make sure that you have a safe product. So we're to the point where we have that stuff ready to go. Make sure that if you are taking pumpkin out of the freezer, that you check the moisture level in that as it thaws, because you may end up with a little bit more liquid because of weeping, because of that freezing. So you might want to drain some of that extra liquid off. If you are like my family, we always like to roast those seeds if you're making jack-o'-lanterns or if you are preserving a bunch of pumpkins. And so really quick, easy thing to do for roasting those those pumpkin seeds is to clean them off, wash off the seeds, blot them dry with a paper towel, and then toss them with just a little bit of canola oil Place them on a baking sheet and bake them for about 10 to 15 minutes at 250 degrees. And then if you like to, you can always salt them lightly if you're interested in that. I think the important thing with pumpkins is to remember is that we don't want to just reserve pumpkins for Thanksgiving and for Halloween. We want to make sure that we include pumpkins in our diet throughout the year. Excuse me. And if you're purchasing pumpkin, make sure that you recognize that there's a difference between pureed pumpkin, canned pureed pumpkin, and also the pumpkin pie filling. The pumpkin pie filling will have additional spices and sugars and things that will have been added. And so depending on the recipe that you're preparing, you may not want to have something that has those additional things added. So look for the right product when you're purchasing it in your local grocery store. Going right along with pumpkins, I thought, let's also talk about squash, because now we're going into the grocery stores or farmers markets and we have lots of different kinds of squash out there. Gosh, I don't even know, people are looking at them, and if you've always grabbed your favorite buttercup, if that's the one you always grab, I really challenge you to grab something new. Look for something different. And I found something interesting about the buttercup squash, and maybe Jackie knows this, but maybe she doesn't. Did you know that the buttercup squash was actually released by North Dakota Agricultural College?
No, I didn't.
Yes, in 1931. It came from NDSU. Yay! Yeah. Another way to get bison in here in the discussion. The buttercup squash is probably the one that's the most common. We recognize that one, the green kind of turban-like shape. And it's great for baking. It has a lot of good flavor, but I do encourage you to take a look at some of the other ones that are out there. We also have a good assortment of butternut squash, with just like its name, does have a little bit of a nutty flavor to it. It's the skin is much thinner and easier to handle, so if you would like to peel that one and boil it, you can. Although all squash can be baked, so that becomes no issue. Acorn squash is another one that's a nice one. It's a very small squash, which makes it nice for somebody who's only cooking for one or two. So you don't have to have so much leftover. However, if you do prepare a large squash, they are it's something that's very easy to put in the refrigerator to have at a later time, or freeze it and to take it out later. So it's kind of one of those things where you can cook a large squash today and then be able to have squash for a few other meals after that. Spaghetti squash is another favorite that's out there, and just as its name implies, when you bake that squash and then open it up and pull out the center meat in that squash, you're going to find it'll look like spaghetti, and it actually can be served and used like spaghetti with just a sauce over the top, whatever your favorite spaghetti sauce might be. A sweet dumpling, or a carnival squash, sometimes we'll see in our stores also. They're a little bit lighter in color. They have a similar shape to the buttercup, but they also have more distinct indentations and lines going vertically through the squash. They tend to be like a light yellow, light orange. Just like their name implies, they also have a very a delicate sweetness to them. And so that's another one that you can consider. And the nice thing about squash is that you don't have to know anything special about trying to prepare them. Basically, you can cook them whole. You can cut them and then bake them. They work really well with meals where you want to put everything in the oven and cook everything all at once. They're very versatile in the fact that if you have a particular hot dish or a meatloaf or something else that you're wanting to cook at the same time, and that needs to be cooked at a certain temperature in the oven, the squash don't care. It doesn't matter. You can cook them really at any temperature, and so that makes them very easy to work into those kinds of meals. And squash are very similar to pumpkins in that they contain a lot of the same nutrients. Vitamin A, very rich in fiber, and potassium again, and so they're gonna be a good source of excellent nutrition, and they're very inexpensive. You can get a whole bundle of of squash for just a few dollars. And so it definitely is something that fits into somebody's grocery budget also. We also have lots of recipes that are available for cooking squash. One that I pulled out just as one to note, it's a winter squash, or you can use pumpkin also, pancake. And so if you have family members that are interested in they like pumpkin pie, they might like a pumpkin pancake also. And I probably didn't mention that before, but pumpkin and squash can be used interchangeably very easily in recipes. And pumpkin and squash can be added to lots of, whether it's hot dishes or meatloafs or all those kinds of things. It can be added as a filler. It can add a little extra flavor, a little extra texture. And so definitely create and put whatever you'd like to together. But I do challenge you to, the next time you're at the grocery store, the farmer's market, grab one of those squash that you've never tried before and bring it home and give it a try and see what you think about that squash. So, who has a favorite squash here?
We like the spaghetti sauce squash a lot, and I grow those in my garden, and we really like them because I think that we like them because they're more of a mild flavor.
Yes, very mild in flavor,
and they're not real strong.
The buttercup, even though it's a real favorite I think it's what people are used to, the buttercup has a very strong flavor. And so if you think you don't like squash, or if you have somebody in your family that says, I don't like squash, the spaghetti squash should be one to try because it is more mild. How about you, Ashley? Do you have favorite squash?
I guess I personally really like the butternut squash. I actually will make a butternut squash soup, and everybody isn't exactly key on a butternut squash soup, but my family really enjoys it. So.
Well, good. Yeah, I think people are surprised that they actually like soup that's made from squash. And Miss Carla, do you have a favorite squash?
I'll make it really easy, and I'm not a squash eater, so no.
Well, we'll have to work on that. And with that, I think we're going to take a break, and we'll be back with the Extension Connection.
Welcome back to the Extension Connection. And I'm going to turn it over to Ashley, and she's going to have some things to say about vegetables and other potpourri.
Thank you, Jackie. Yes, I'm going to be talking about some of that soil management and garden management that we have to do to take care of kind of finishing out the season. And first, as Vanessa was talking about the pumpkins, a good idea after Halloween has passed and after your jack-o'-lantern isn't looking as spooky as you had planned anymore, and it begins to droop a little bit.
Or it's looking spookier than it did.
That could be also. An idea is to actually recycle that pumpkin. You can smash that pumpkin and put it into a compost pile, and then utilize that in your garden. Break it down into small pieces, and then work it into the garden soil, and it acts as organic matter to give a little extra nutrients to your soil. With talking about soil, dealing with your garden, you want to make sure that at the end of the season, most people have cleaned out all their gardens, but there may still be a little work that needs to be done. You want to make sure that you clean up all debris, remove or deeply bury any of the diseased plants or fruits in the garden. The best is to just remove them from your soil base, and then this will likely reduce the infection for next year, which we all would love not to have to deal with any types of infection in our gardens. Another thing is to add some organic matter. Incorporate an inch of peat moss compost or rotting manure to improve that soil structure, drainage, and fertility. Avoid manure from pastures treated with pesticide herbicide. And I'm going to be touching a little bit more on that because what that is meaning is some of that manure that you might be getting from the pastures may have been sprayed with some type of herbicide to control some of that broadleaf weeds. And by putting that back into your garden, it will hinder some of the growth come spring. Manure from livestock feeding on a herbicide-treated hay or pasture grass should not be used in gardens. This is because the chemical passes through the animal without decomposing properly. So there's still going to be remnants of that herbicide in that manure. When gardeners use this manure, they are literally adding a persistent herbicide back into the soil, which is not good for our gardens. The hearts and hope of many of the best gardeners will be broken if you use that manure that has a pesticide in that. That'll put you back quite a bit. Tomatoes, potatoes, peas, and beans are extremely sensitive, so you want to be very careful. Affected plants will stretch and curl, similar to damage caused by dandelion killers that drift onto plants. So you want to make sure that the manure that you are putting back in to your garden soil is herbicide free. And talking about a little bit more about what we should do at the end of our garden season, make sure that we are cleaning all of our flower beds or our gardens to remove that diseased foliage that's remaining. Foliage may be keep some of that snow or trap that snow and can act as a barrier, but it's important to make sure that you do get the large standing foliage out of your garden. You can mulch after the soil freezes, and since that is always coming quicker than we expect, it's important to get some of that mulching done. Although there is a warning that if you mulch too early, it can attract rodents and prevent hardening. And that's the last thing I want personally at my house, because rodents are not my friends. So another thing about making sure we clean up our gardens and outsides is if you have an apple tree, you want to make sure that you clean under those trees. You pick up any fallen fruit or leaves and this will reduce infestation of some of the apple diseases that come on in the spring. And then just working in our yards yet, we have a few things that we should be doing for our lawns, and that's to be doing some fertilizing mid-October. So currently right now is the best time to fertilize the lawns, including the low maintenance lawns. Even if you have if you don't do a lot of upkeep on your lawn, it's always good to put just a general fertilizer down for it. This dormant application will develop roots and leave buds until the ground freezes in mid-November, leading to a thicker turf, which would be a great base come spring for your lawn to really take off. Again, I guess I look at my yard and I look and I say, it's getting kind of long. Should I be mowing yet, or shouldn't I be mowing? A tall turf is bad over winter, so you want to make sure that you do a last mowing. That tall turf can attract rodents. Again, not my friend. So we're going to get out there and we're going to cut down some of that extra growth. And you want to cut your turf at a normal height or slightly lower. You don't want to take it all the way bare down, but you do want to get some of that extra thick turf off before the winter comes in. And then if you have some seeding, if you have some bare spots in your lawn and you want to do some seeding, right now is not the best time to be doing that. You want to wait until November. That way you will have a better likelihood for those seeds to actually sprout come spring. You want to sow the seed lightly and lightly incorporate the soil, and you want to irrigate once. Now I see this happening a lot in the new development in Mandan, where I live by. There's a lot of people that are trying to push their pretty lawns out yet, and I hope come spring that they look nice and everything, but there just needs to be a little diligence that goes along with seeding for new grass. And then another lawn maintenance tip is to shred or rake some of those leaves. I know I just did some raking this past weekend and made a big pile, and the kids jumped in it and there went all my leaves. So we did a lot of raking this past weekend. It's important to shred the leaves with your mower or remove the leaves from your lawn, and that will help from suffocating from the mulched leaves as long as you can see that grass blades after the mowing. Thick layers of leaves must be raked. As in my yard, we have quite a few trees, and so we get quite a few leaves. So the kids had a lot of fun jumping in the leaves. And one last thing that I think I'm going to be trying to do come winter is growing some tulips indoors in containers. Now, it's very fun to have kind of a garden inside, and it brings kind of a nice environment and kind of just a happy atmosphere. And so I'm going to be trying to grow tulips indoors. You can enjoy these bulbs indoors too. Select the biggest bulbs you can find. Use a pot with a broad bottom, such as an azalea pot. And these are less likely to tip over when the plants get taller. So you want to make sure that you get a pretty good sized pot. That way it can hold that tulip for a long time. You want to fill with potting soil, setting the tips of the bulbs at the surface, and you place the bulbs close together, no more than 2 inches apart. You want to make sure that the bulbs will need about 14 weeks of cool temperatures. So I'm thinking of putting them in my basement. I have a laundry room and a cellar that usually stays pretty cool. So I think that would be a great area to grow some tulips indoors. And when they start sprouting, place them near the sunny window at room temperature. So you want to make sure that they are getting some sunlight. And with that, thank you for listening to the Extension Connection, and we will be back in 2 weeks. This was the Morton County Extension Office, and we wish you a great week.